Townsend, where did she go? Has done us the great favor of starting a shared notes doc. This is something that a few people have asked for. So if people want to start like taking notes that we can keep and share beyond today and hopefully continue the conversation going forward, please contribute throughout the panels and the spotlights. The link is up here on the screen. It's bit.ly/Code4All Summit 2015, and it is case sensitive when you're typing it in. So thanks again to Kat, and I hope you guys will all contribute to the notes. All right, we're going to kick into our next round of spotlights. We have 4 this time. We're going to start with, I'm going to hand back to Julia, who's going to introduce each of the presenters.
Thanks. 4 more spotlights: Japan, the Netherlands, Poland, Taiwan. We start with Japan. The next speaker is well known as a community manager for solving social issues in Japan. Hal is Ushahidi's certificated developer, member of the Open Knowledge Foundation Japan, the Open Street Map Foundation, and today here as representative of Code for Japan. Hal, I remember your presentation at the Code for America Summit. There you mentioned that you had 19 brigades, and when I was flipping through your slides the other day, I was quite amazed on how the brigade network in Japan grew. You also, at the summit, presented a fellowship, the city of Nami, and I think you launched another one, right? So tell us more about what Code for Japan is up to.
Thank you, Julia. Hi guys. Hi. I'm Seki, representative of Code of Japan. I'm really excited to be here to share the story from Japan. Code of Japan is Code for Japan was founded by, about 2 years ago, and currently we have 5 core members and 20 volunteer members, and 2,300 Facebook members right now. And 32 brigades working with us in Japan. Each brigade is independent community, and we are a kind of platform for knowledge sharing for them, each brigade. And let me introduce one highlight project from us. It's fellowship program in Namiya town. 2 fellows working with Namiya town and develop tablet applications to help rebuilding local communities. Why they had to rebuild local communities? The Namiya town was located in the part of Fukushima area damaged by the big earthquake and tsunami 4 years ago. And too bad for them, the Namiya town was located nearby the nuclear reactor Fukushima plant, which became famous by the nuclear plant accident 4 years ago. So Namiya town affected by the high level radiation. So the residents had to evacuate it to the entire Japan. So they had to live separately. And the Namiya town decided to distribute the tablet devices for rebuilding the community online. But it's really big challenge for us and town. So fellows needed to understand their true needs, because the former residents didn't use tablet devices, so they had to find how to use the tablet devices. So we offered to learn civic-centric application development, and he is one of fellow, Takayuki Yoshinaga. And we found that not only sending fellows we found only sending fellow won't work. So we had to support the fellow by learning the citizen-centric process and project management. Through the project, we gathered 420 people, including citizens, and collected the 770 ideas and developed 14 prototypes with hackathons. And after the transparency public procurement process, we reduced the $1 million budget for three years compared with similar project run on the other area. And we organized 10 times training workshops as well. And created avatar, Japanese like avatar. And daily news and photo sharing services and radiation map and dojo. This means video application for beginners. And we found that just creating application is not enough. We had to train the elder people to use tablets. So we designed the workshop and learned many times and teach them to how to use that. And in result, the usage rate of our application is really high. And nearly 90% of users regularly use our application. This is the message we got to the call center. And previously, from this guy is old guy. Previously, I wanted to die because I lost the meaning of life. But I found hope as I can talk with my grandchild by the tablet application. So this guy is living separately with the family. And government officials also said we changed the communication between the citizens and government. Now this is currently we are in second season of the fellowship. A new fellow is starting to work with the local government and improving the daily use application that creates a new application. But Code for Japan is facing those challenges. First, we need funding because we have no full-time employee yet, and very lack of human resources. And most difficulty is the language barrier, like this. It's translating the civic apps you guys created to Japanese is really a high cost. And I'd like to tell more stories from us, but it's difficult for us. And recent project, we started the corporate fellowship program. This is a kind of fellowship, but corporate staff will work with the local governments as a fellow. Difference between the normal fellowship is this is short term, 3 months, and part-time work. And company pays coordinate fee to Code for Japan, and local government doesn't pay money. So that's the difference. And started in Kobe City, and Yahoo's engineer and the local NPO working with government staff. And what next? I guess corporate fellowship will grow up in Japan, and Code for Japan Summit will be held in November. And we will develop an online platform for brigade for sharing their knowledge with each other. Thank you.
Next up is Code for the Netherlands. Ivonne, the next speaker. It's been involved in civic tech. Since I've been involved in civic tech projects, I've always been very inspired by projects from the VAG Society. You should definitely check out their website. They run brain hacks, work on citizen science projects, teach creative programming at schools. They do research, work with artists and governments and many more. Ivonne has been involved in Apps for Europe and in Code for Europe and is currently running Code for the Netherlands. Ivonne, tell us more.
Okay, do I need to click for the first slide? Yes, thank you. My name is Ivonne. I work for an organization in the Netherlands called VAG Society. And quick introduction about who the VAG is, because it will, I think, demonstrate why we started Code for the Netherlands. We are an organization that works with opening up technology for people in society, and we try to, as you would say, democratize the access to technology and also try to stimulate the technology of democratization as well. For us, it's about seeing how different type of users can not only use technology, but really help them be empowered to make changes in their own lives, in their own local communities. And we do this in 6 thematic labs. We have an open web lab, an open design lab, a future heritage lab, a future internet lab, a creative care lab, and a creative education lab. So that's a lot of labs. We're also about 50 people, so that explains, I think, why we can handle these many topics. Quick illustration, the Open Wet Lab, as I think currently is a very good showcase about what the VAG is all about. We try to democratize the access to life sciences as a technology. So we run biohack academies. We work with artists that to give them access to life sciences labs and have them create art using, for instance, bacteria or, well, an example, one artist injected herself with horse blood as an artistic presentation to raise the discussion about using animals for testing. So yeah, that's really almost fringe, you could say, but it's a very interesting technology that is coming up just because we are starting to collaborate on a project where people can start creating their own antibiotics at home. And so if you can see where this technology is heading and how it can impact society, I think you can understand the relevance of it. So we started actually knowing the Code for program through one of the European projects we were involved in. And for us, a large part of the funding comes currently from European projects, so funded by the European Commission. And the project was called Commons for Europe, and we could send 6 other cities could experiment with the Code for methodology there. It wasn't equally successful everywhere. These were the fellows in Amsterdam. They worked for 2 years, 2 consecutive years, on different type of applications. They had a lot of different challenges that they worked on. This one, they created an application where government officials could create route tours through the city. Just because Amsterdam is very congested in the central areas, it's a very big problem for the city, because if New York is an apple, then Amsterdam is like a pea, or I would say maybe even smaller, a seed. So we're very congested in the city center, and they worked on that. They also worked on other applications, but they also really worked with local communities. And for instance, this is an example. If you can read Dutch, you can see that it says learn to program, learn to code. They worked with local communities. For some of the apps they were creating were for local communities, and they were teaching them how to actually maintain the applications themselves. Because actually it was very successful for the Netherlands, so we were able to launch, when the official European project ended, we were able to launch it as an independent project for the VAG, for VAG Society, and which is called Code for NL. And you see here a picture of the official launch. That was beginning of this year, and Catherine Bracey was actually there as a presenter. And currently we have 1 fellow working in Amsterdam, 3 openings for the city of Eindhoven. We have an advisory board, and we're planning several events for the fall for policymakers and coders within this program. And for us, this Code for NL fits a sort of need that we see in this civic tech community or in the civic tech movement. That is a nice addition to other type of civic tech projects we do. For instance, this, we helped the city do its first through hackathons and app competitions like App for Amsterdam. This was 2011. We helped the city launch its first open data portal, and in the past couple of years we've been working on creating an API for that called City SDK. It's a smart city real-time linked open data API, which gives static information, but of course real-time dynamic information as well. Next slide. Thank you. Another project we're doing is the Smart Citizen Lab, where we try to work with citizens that want to measure things in their own local environment. I have a short video clip of the...
In Amsterdam is het Smart Citizen project
down
van
the
start
volume?
gegaan.
No sound,
Binnen dit
please.
project
Thank
gaan
you.
100 Amsterdammers
Because it's
de
Dutch. Who
luchtkwaliteit bij
understands Dutch here? So what you see here is the Smart Citizen Kit, which was made by Fab Lab Barcelona. Who doesn't know what a Fab Lab is? Or maybe I should ask, who knows what a Fab Lab is? Because people always want to say yes. So a Fab Lab is a digital fabrication lab. They're all over the world. It's a way of people to work with laser cutters, with 3D printers, with CNC milling machines, any type of technology that you would need in order to create something, anything you would want. All kinds of people come into the Fab Lab. We ourselves have 2 days that are open to the public, but I know some Fab Labs that are open the entire week. So anybody can come in and use these machines. All you have to do is pay for the materials and make sure you document the making process so people can replicate it. So it's opening up the process of making. And here is what you see here is this Smart Citizen Kit. It measures things like humidity and temperature and a few other things. And we just had a call for participation in a local newspaper and asked people if they wanted a kit and help us for all types of reasons you could apply for it. And 100 citizens got one. And if you can go to the next movie clip. About 100 people got one, and they worked with us in a program of about half a year where they measured things, and we connected them to people in local government so they could have a dialogue about what they were measuring and what the city was officially measuring and how these things related. This was a sort of experimental project that we did. You can look at the current Smart Citizen Kit live here on the Smart Citizen website. Which we are now translating into a bigger program because we saw that the quality of the sensors that were being used in this kit were not high enough. So we, in this current iteration of the Smart Citizen Lab, we are also making new sensors with people themselves, and we are sort of hacking more expensive sensors to see how they work. So it's also more about the hardware and getting people to understand how this hardware works and how the results they are measuring compared to the real measurements by the city. I think you need to go one slide back now. Another project I'm currently involved in is around our EID system. I think this could be of interest here because I think in the Netherlands, one of the things you need to know is that trust in government is very high. So that's maybe a bit of context that is relevant. And they are creating a free framework for your EID management. So they are collaborating with different commercial organizations to see how this framework should look and how your digital identity, so the audit trail of the audit trail of everywhere that your information is being accessed, payments that you're making, the healthcare that you have applied for, etc. How that should work. And they were getting very low response actually from politicians in the policy making, in the political decision making process on on how to, they just weren't understanding the problem, and they asked us to get a citizen's perspective on the subject. And what you see here is a picture of somebody that participated in the workshop. These weren't everyday citizens. These are, you would say, definitely civic engaged people, but they had no idea what EID was or what it should be, and how your digital identity is managed in the real world currently. They were just very engaged. And I think if you go to the next slide, I can go to the next slide, I'm sorry. I'm getting confused with the movie clips. I shouldn't have put them in. So we designed a program, a workshop program for them to really get them first to understand what is how do you feel about your digital identity, what is it, and get a sort of shared and common language in this space, so that we could then, and I think this was like 50% of the two-day workshop that we did, was all about first understanding what the problem is, what is the question we are trying to answer here, before going into the potential an ID framework could provide. But this is a very interesting program we're currently running, and a lot of very interesting, when I presented this last week, somebody asked me, well, this can't work. I mean, how can citizens have anything to say about any type of framework that's going to be put up to manage this? And I told them, well, I think the interesting thing is that because of the fact that we're asking regular citizens, well, not that regular citizens, civically engaged citizens, but still people without any expertise, we came up with a lot of collaborative approaches towards managing an EID system that really didn't involve going to a big commercial organization that will give you free management of your digital identity, while in the background, of course, harvesting all your data for their own purposes. One more project I wanted to highlight is Transparent Netherlands, which actually is, I think, Little Sis is American, right? It's pretty much this. It's a database of showing the way that who's connected to whom when it comes to politics and business. And I think all of these projects combined help us to understand the civic tech space in the Netherlands, and Code for NL is a real useful intervention and a real useful addition to all these other projects that we are already running in collaboration with a lot of different organizations in the Netherlands. We still see that there is a huge need for the government to understand how ICT works and how it impacts the policy-making process, so that they don't leave it to the consultants and to big procurement processes, but that they start that they start embracing this agile working methodology and seeing that they need to work more with people with coding skills in their own organization as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ivonne. Next up is Gornicki dla Polski, also known as Code for Poland. They've been working on the topics transportation, elections. They've been working with budget data. They just recently redeployed Transit Mix, a tool from Code for America. They ran Hack for Freedom a couple of months ago, where they invited community from all over Europe to join them. Code for Poland has brigades and is running a fellowship program. How are your fellows doing, and what are the brigades building, Jakub?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Well or very well? Well, okay, I'll work on that. Hi, so my name is Jakub. It's okay. And it's working. So I am actually working for the Państwa Foundation, which was created 5 years ago. And for 3 years, the team which you're seeing here, which is also a little bit larger right now. Oh wow, there's a screen here. That's cool. We were working on something which you here in the United States know as data.gov. And we created it with 5 people in Poland just by ourselves. Because the access to public information is very nice, but we have a lot of public data, but this data is not open data. So a little bit over 2 years ago, we sat down and we said, like, this is time to actually get people excited about open data and other people than us. And we started to look, we've built this great API to this data, and we didn't want to build a customer base, we wanted to build a community around it. So thinking for a while, we have arrived into this great name, which starts with code 4, very, very unique here. And then we suddenly discovered that there is this code for America. So I emailed Stacy, and Stacy said, like, don't tell anyone, but you know, Catherine just came on board Code for America to start the international program. And that was a couple months before everything was announced. So this is basically how we arrived into this. Later on in September, we've started the, we've announced that Code for Poland is live, that we're looking for developers who want to get excited about open data and build civic tools. And we were hoping to get 80 people. And we've got a little bit over 300 in first 3 days. That was a lot, and that was too much. And since then, we started to take this initial hype and build something which is more structured and more effective. So there was this initial hype, and there was a lot of people coming in, and that created a lot of effects which we had no idea that we will get in the first thing. We actually kicked it off with a huge event. Actually, Catherine, if you remember, you came for it. This was a really old school hackathon with people sleeping in a place where they code. And almost 50 of them, if I remember correctly, slept there. And there was like 3 guys who didn't stop coding for 24 hours. And we had no idea what keeps them running, but they were just standing there and doing things. And so, and they almost won anyhow. And since then, we are and Julia mentioned our other events we have done. There was Code for Freedom. There are some hackathons we are organizing and so on. But some of the things which are actually starting to kick and get some notice is one app which you see is called Sejmo Trendy, and combines open data from the parliament with the actual social media buzz generated by the MPs. So if they tweet something about some law, it's being connected to open data we have in our database. And thing which we never expected to happen was actually a policy change, because you know we are a tech-driven organization. We know what the word policy means. We don't do it that much. But suddenly we've had a city which approached us, city of Gdańsk, which is 500,000 city, a 4th biggest city in Poland, approached us, and we started to talk to them, and they decided to adopt an open data policy, which became the 3rd open data policy in Europe and the 1st in Poland. And that was a little bit over a year ago. And after this, since we've grabbed our first city, last year we've had the first fellowship program, and they will be joining us for like, there were 2 fellows last year, and there will be 4 fellows starting later on this year. And those fellows gave us another hype. Here you can see something which is called Band. And this is a very simple app which allows the citizens in Gdańsk to tell the city council where to plant a tree. That's it. No one is laughing. That was supposed to be a great joke. Come on. It's actually a little bit more complicated. So the thing is that when a developer builds a building and they have to cut a tree, they are first of all obliged to pay a lot of money as a fine, and they also have to, let's say for one tree, they have to plant 20 new ones. So the city had a problem that they had this huge quota of unused trees and no space to plant it at all. They were just run out of public space. So instead, you can either suggest a place or you can suggest your garden and say like, okay, I'm going to water this tree for the next 5 years. Please come and plant a couple trees in my garden. And that already has over 485 in the last, with no promotion, 400 planted trees. And there's still a couple thousand to be planted. Now, we have 4 more cities which approached us and they want to take this up and have it. We also have the Ministry of Environment who wants to turn it into a global Polish platform. So if you ever arrive to Poland in the next 3 years and you will just end up in a forest, that's going to be because of this app. Now, I know that this app is very simple, but what it does and what is great, it's a great promotion about what is actually civic tech and civic tool for us. Because it's easy, it's understandable, and it solves a very small problem, which is actually making the city more simply nicer. And that gives us the potential to actually do more. Now, if I would say about challenges, we have actually narrowed it down besides the funding, which is always a challenge. And it's actually leaders. And leaders are always like, if there's something going great, it means that we have great leaders in a brigade, and we are currently running 7 brigades. And if there is something which could be going better, it's always connected to leadership. So that either the leadership is changing, or we are not doing enough to support it, or they could use some funding locally in other cities. So it's basically this, and we are focusing much of our work basically to support our brigade leaders. We are growing our partner database, and who are actually the local NGOs and others who are involved. We've recently started something which is not very sexy, but it always works. It's their routine hackathons. So we have 2 brigades and soon 3 who actually meet every week to code, and it's just. We have 2 guys in the office staying late at Tuesdays. They hate it because it usually ends at the morning. But it's really working, and just after a couple months of running this regularly, we have other cities who want to do it again. Some obvious things, and if I were to say, so for seat labs, no, there should be wider. So first of all, the one thing which is happening in Poland, there is a huge grassroots city movement. Actually, city movements. In every city, major cities, there is a lot of right now engaged citizens. It's connected to also our election year, which we have this year, a basic election season in the last 18 months. So the engagement, the public debate is rising and so on. So we are rebranding our brigades into city labs because we want to tap into, we want to connect to those, there's over a couple hundred NGOs created in just past 2 years to make the cities nicer. The other thing is that we took this one small open data policy in Gdańsk, which has actually created a huge structural change, which I'll be talking more during the panel, and we've turned it into a program, and we currently have 4 cities who committed to create open data portal and the open data policy, which is signed by the mayors. This is not by the low level, by the medium level. It has to be signed by the mayor and made and actually a local law. And we have some great examples of how this works in the long term. And we're also focusing more on fellowships. We'll have 2 more fellowships this year on a city level and 1 fellow on the government level, because Poland is actually one of the 2 countries which has the Ministry of Digitalization. We're still trying to understand what does it mean exactly. But that's what they always keep telling us. So we've told them that since you have this nice name of the ministry, why don't you take someone inside who's better at tech, you know? And this is really great for us because that will allow us to actually work with them more closely and embed and give them people who will hopefully disrupt it in a good way from within. And what's really cool is that, I don't have a slide for it, but it's also what I find fascinating about the Code for movements. One thing is the things which I mentioned, which are measurable, brigades, number of people, number of hackathons, but there are also soft examples. And 2 years ago, during our first meeting in Łódź, I think, which is another city in Poland, I was telling, we were trying to get people inspired, not only to think about the apps which they can create from scratch, but we were showcasing them, back then, apps from Code for America. And we're just telling them, why don't you fork the code and make it work? And they're like, nah, we want to do something new, you know? That it has to be ours. And one of the apps I was showing to the people on many meetups was actually Street Mix. And well, 2 years later, 2 months back, suddenly I am opening some article on mainstream media in Poland, and I see Polish roads being, the changes suggested by the Street Mix. And Street Mix is currently actually being heavily used by activists. I have no idea if it's our fault or not, or maybe someone found it, but it's really cool to see how this soft long-tail changes are working up and finding, and how it all actually merges right now. And I think that's it from me. Yeah, and the last thing, we'll have another huge event coming up next year. Actually, hopefully, I'm not sure if you're familiar with a thing called European Capital of Culture. In the next year, there's going to be a Polish city of Wrocław, and there's going to be a huge hackathon connected to the European Capital of Culture. And so that's actually a huge thing for the open data movement. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. The last showcase, Code for Tomorrow from Taiwan. I think it was Tom Steinberg who mentioned in a conversation, Tom Steinberg is the founder of My Society, and he mentioned in a conversation that Taiwan and Israel have the biggest civic tech communities worldwide. And when you hear the next speaker, TH from Taiwan, talk about weekly hack events with hundreds of people, there's no doubt that this statement is true. Code for Tomorrow is a network of policy geeks and civic hackers that work closely with government. I find it super inspiring to hear stories from Taiwan and to check their GitHub repos. TH, please give us an overview on what the community is currently working on and tell us how you are organized, because that's also very interesting.
No, I don't need a mic, right? I just need this, okay. Right button, okay. So here you go with, let's start with Code for Tomorrow. And you may be wondering that why we call ourselves Code for Tomorrow in the first place, because we started quite early in 2012 in May. And okay, here's, it's being supported by, of course, Open Knowledge Taiwan and a couple of other local partners in Taiwan as well. I think the funniest part, that's why we call ourselves Code for Tomorrow, is well, we got the idea from this sort of map, Facebook, the social graph of Facebook. So if you take the data from particularly place, for example, Taiwan or Hong Kong, you are getting to see the friends connection in other nations or places or cities across borders. So we were thinking that the problem that we were facing might also be the problem somewhere else in those regions, cities. So we take a screenshot of this page, and we are seeing that the people from Taiwan are very close with their friends in Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong, Malaysia, I'm not sure, and Singapore as well. So we got our data, we call ourselves Code for Tomorrow, and of course there are some other brigades in Taiwan which call themselves Code for some other cities as well. So we got the idea from this because we, in that part of the world, we really want to focus on the guanxi. I'm not sure if you know the term. It's like the relationship and connection in a dynamic society in the Chinese culture. So if you are pushing for the theories of change, the guanxi or relationship between you and those people, the government and the citizens, and stakeholders. That's why we are very much focused on how to get people involved and be seen by government, or how government workers are to be seen by citizens. Because it's hard, it's hard if you don't create a platform for people to engage with each other or even talk to each other. It's hard to make things happen, and there are a lot of people living in that circle. So the challenges you are going to face will be very huge, okay, within that circle, okay. So people are far more connected than you think, and people there they generally favor ground connection more than online connection. So ground connection is very important for doing a lot of things with the government or within the civic tech ecosystem. And there are a whole new stack of digital natives. I'm saying this because we get our largest source of coders or enthusiasts from the very young generations of people. So for me, I'm in my 30s, but we get a bunch of those in 20s or in their 15s, participate in our events. Maybe hundreds of them participate in one event alone. So how are they going to see their government? How are they going to engage with the government? It's going to be a huge problem, of course. And it's the last, it's insanely divided between the civic and GovTech. It's like, there's a great gap between that. So they don't talk to each other. They are not seen by each other. So So we started worried about tomorrow but started to do something for now. But we took the metaphor a little bit different. We think ourselves as sort of a doctors or nurse or physicians. So we take the metaphor as we are pumping some or administer some drugs into government, or we take some vaccinations or sorts of like that. And this metaphor worked quite well in the past because we have a lot of activities on the left. You can see the hashtag. We have meetups, workshops, hackathons, Open Data Day, of course, and a lot of you are probably very familiar, and we are highlighting 3 of them. So that's probably like the procedure that we are trying to tackle some of the problem and make impact within the government or outside government or among stakeholders. So of course you will see symptoms and you got check. And then you tell your patient to exercise or you administer some drugs for them. And sometimes you have to go to some real surgery. So you have to put them into the lab or go to their place to do some things, 30 things. And sometimes they need to, after they come out of the hospital or the ER, they have to do some rehab. Okay, so that's how we, how we are seeing this sort of thing. So we took that. I don't have a medical background or a physician background, but we have been partnered with one of our major projects called Code for Healthcare. We partner with 37 hospitals, and it is a huge challenge. So I'm highlighting one of the projects that we've been doing right now. Even you can't find our website right now. Okay, we are still doing that. So it's Code for Healthcare. This is actually a sentence, a word by one of the founding doctors. He said that it's like, in the medical system, it's like why you have so many clinical guidelines to follow. Why don't you have dream to improve your healthcare system by starting looking at the data that they have? So we code this like the converting compliance to compassion. It's like the CCC, Computer Chaos Club in Germany. Okay, you know that. Okay, you know the CCC. Okay, so the hospital, one of the hospitals, of course, they have been doing this data-driven, medical policy for long enough. So they have pile of data. It's being digitalized, and they are connecting other 36 hospitals with that. So they have a sort of like an overarching, architecture over their data exchange program already for like 3 years. So this sort of like exchange program is it was funded by one of the doctors in the ER system, but we encountered some huge problems like that, just like the case that happened in Japan. Whenever you came to a disaster or crisis that is nationwide or in a severe scale, you are going to be faced with a lot of challenges, and you need to bring civic technology into it. So this is actually a screenshot of the explosion in the second largest city in Taiwan, which is called Kaohsiung. So it's like the gas pipeline or the oil pipeline exploded. So the railroad exploded, and the length of the explosion was like 2 kilometers. 2 kilometers. So there were more than like maybe 14 ambulances being buried down on that explosion alone. So you are seeing that the doctors started to get the data out after they have the time of massive explosion, and did some data analysis after the explosion. But they are facing some major obstacles as to how this sort of experience could be channeled into some more insightful policy change for the hospital system. Okay, so these are some of the questions that came to mind from those doctors on the field. So for example, the first one is what the surge impact, and what about the ambulance diversion? Because all the ambulances, I'm not saying all the ambulances, about 16 ambulances were destroyed on site at the first time. And I think more than 20,000 people on those blocks were affected, 20,000. So, and then what about conjoined heterogeneous data for more insight relevant to disaster preparedness? So these like symptoms, the real symptoms, and they have the data. For God's sake, they have the data already. If you don't have that data, you are not going to reproduce that again. You don't want that happen again. So we ran just like the fourth hackathon in a series. So we did some checker, we call it checker exercise and surgery. So you can see the stakeholder on that hackathon. You have a data scientist. Let me see the pointer. Oops, no pointer. You have data scientists. You have nurses. You have some professors with very white hairs, ladies, and firefighters over here. These are all firefighters. So they were doing hackathon and design their own apps because they need a tool to report the ground situation back to the, like an emergency operations center right on time. But they don't get the evidence in their procurement process. So we help them to, So this is like some of the very easy outcome out of that. So if you are very tech savvy, this is nothing, but this really help them to move their, their situation forward for better tomorrow. So this is one of the projects we've done, and we've been doing for a year right now, and we're supporting and funding from hospitals and some of the government Ministry of Healthcare. And another program is like it's a data science program. So we focus on the demand side first. We don't focus on open data because there are other very strong communities out there doing this already. So we focus on identifying real needs. Open data for what? And the second point is that we focus on talent pool, not data pool. So we try to identify the right people and provide them to government, to stakeholders. Okay, and data for social good. So we run a series of events. You can see even young kids or children are very interested in civic tech. So it's like a coding school. And then checker, you have events. You have doing prototype right away by some very high-profile app developers in Taiwan. And then you have an exercise. You put it on Open Data Day. So you get like 300 people working on a few project which could move the agenda forward. And then the official drugs and gene. What I'm saying is drug because it's a paid course. So you have to, we were thinking about funding from the very first start. So it's like a data science training program for government officials, for doctors, for journalists. And this program is sort of like our cash cow. I will not say cash cow, but like provide us a momentum to move forward. So you can exercise here. A lot of data scientists you have here. And then there's a rehab conference. This is actually a rehabilitation conference. Yeah. So we call it a Smart Gov conference. So you see the guy with the very white hair there. He used to be the Minister of Interior. So he's quite high profile. And we brought all the stakeholders and their project on that conference. So people get together, see the progress, and move things forward. So it's like a treatment, along the way, and we try to get people together. Okay, so time's up? No, almost. And more surgery workshops, and this is like we took an idea from Health America, so we have emergent program training, incubation. But I think this is the most important part. We did a lot of things wrong, but yesterday is never back. So by now, if you try to check the website, you are not going to see any sign. You are going to see our activities on Flickr, a lot of photos on Flickr, but you are not going to see an official page of our, brigade, because we run into one of the biggest problems is that about trust. What about transparency? Does transparency really beget trust? Because we were working, or even now, we are working very closely with the government. And they are not really used to that if you are to your attitude as you are doing and saying the things that you are doing with them. So in order to move things forward, you have to, hide some thing behind for the sake of, 关系 or, sort of idea. So it's very hard to get trust from the government because some of us are already, well, not in the government, but we have been invited by the government as joining a lot of committee, so like Open Data Committee for different ministries or for different cities. And the second one is why don't we just leave it alone? Because there are some agencies you just can't change it. It's not going to change. It's like if you are, you're like in your 90. What are you going to? Are you going to do something with your arthritis? Probably no. Okay, so that's the idea that we've got. And then it's very hard to do it as NGO. That's why we failed to fund ourselves as an organization. We were very successful at the project level, but we have never been able to fund ourselves as an organization, on the organization level as a mothership for the other project. So some of our projects just took off, got investment, and became social enterprise. But it's hard to get back. So if you are doing it as a business or as a social price, it's going to work. And consolidation versus diffusion. Are we going to consolidate ourselves as an organization, or are we going to diffuse our people to some other stakeholders? So that's why we choose the second one. We are phasing out of the stage right now, but we are trying to provide our experience and connection with the government to other stakeholders in Taiwan. So that would be our stories, and please remember that because there are more people living outside, living inside the circle. So from Pakistan to Vladivostok, no one from Russia, and Bali, Indonesia. So there are really some tough challenges out there. I think the Code4All platform will be very invaluable for a lot of us. Thanks.